morning once again from Tampa Bay, guys. Today is going to be a brake upgrade day for the bobber. Now, I'm correcting a couple issues. They're normal maintenance issues, nothing really wrong. One is I've got a little bit of front brake vibration just from the rotor being warped. Now, this is a very basic setup. You have a dual piston, single caliper brake system, single rotor, and it is non-floating, which means this rotor is directly bolted to the wheel. All right, that's as simple as it gets, pretty much just like a car. So this rotor is solid and it is part of the wheel assembly, as opposed to what's called a semi-floating rotor design, which is used on virtually all other types of bikes. And I can show you that on my FJR here. These are basically rivets. These are not bolts. This rotor, both of them, they're a little floating. They are not directly attached to the wheel. There's a brake right here, and this rivet basically just holds them not too loose, but not too tight together, all right? Point is, they move just a little bit. And what that does is prevents this thing from warping. It allows this to float wherever it needs to in between all the pistons. And it greatly extends the longevity of your rotors. Now this bike has, I don't know, just under 44,000 miles on it. So, you know, it doesn't last any longer than that. Not a big deal, but it is something you need to replace. Now the other issue I have is, I'm very sure, given if you watch the Bobber Build series and the complete lack of maintenance, I'm very sure that this brake line is original. And brake lines age. The stock ones are rubber. They need to be replaced every so often. It's not a mileage thing, it's an age thing. And this is now 9 years old. I'm very sure that it's never been done, and it's supposed to have been replaced twice by now. And what that manifests into is a squishy feeling. When you pull your brake, it should really firm up. And that's when your pads are squeezing the rotor, and that's pretty much all you should get. But what I have is all this. And I'll tell you, it doesn't really stop that well until you get to about here. So this is just basically the flexing, and I can see it. I don't know if the camera can pick it up, but I can even see the flex in the cable as I just pump it like that. So that's, I mean, it's supposed to be there a little bit, but this is pretty easy for me to squeeze. It shouldn't be like that. Not on a hydraulic brake, as opposed to this one over here, just a few thousand miles on it. And it gets really firm right about there. So it's got a shorter initial throw and then not nearly as much squeeze. Now this is still stock too. It's still rubber lines. And they also need to be replaced. And I'll tell you, that's going to be a bitch, because there's like, I don't know, 7 or 8 lines on there. And you need a special tool or a jumper to activate an electronic ABS system to flush the fluid out. And, oh, that's another video. This one, as easy as it gets. 1 line, 1 caliper, 1 rotor, no big deal. So what we're going to do is pull off the front wheel. We're going to unbolt this guy here, put on a relatively new one. I'll show you that in a second. And then we're going to replace the stock line with an aftermarket steel line. Just because, you know what, they last a little bit longer, it's cheaper, and it performs a little bit better. Point of a steel line is they don't have as much flex. So you get a much better feel, and like I said, they don't degrade as fast, so you don't need to replace them as much. So I'll show you what I got. Now I'll tell you what, there are a lot of times where it does not make sense to get OEM parts or new parts on a vehicle. You know, the bobber, if it were stock in great condition, it might be worth $3,500 maybe. I did a little custom work, but it's still not worth a lot of money. So it doesn't make sense to throw hundreds of dollars into just little parts. A new OEM rotor was $250. I couldn't believe it. I was figuring maybe $80 at the most. All right, that's reasonable for what it is. There's nothing special about these rotors. But no, $250. Aftermarket new rotors, just a single rotor, aftermarket, started at $160. It was ridiculous. So you know what? I got a used one off of eBay, $30 shipped. off a bike with 4,000 miles. All right, this is just surface corrosion. I'm going to clean it off. It's baby bottom smooth. There are no grooves. It's in great shape. $30. I mean, that's reasonable. So if you're doing work on a bike like that, I mean, hell, I would, if I was looking at the option even to put new rotors on the FJR, I would not be spending $500 for a set of new rotors. I would be going to eBay. There's just no reason for it. That's ridiculous. Okay, the other item I got is this Gelfer brake line kit. I got this because this particular kit was highly recommended off the forums for that bike. And if you're unsure of stuff to get like that, the forums are a great place to go. I mean, this bike has been out there forever. You know, it's a very old, experienced model, so any kind of information, any kind of tips, tricks, things to use is already out there. So this was the thing to get. I got it from, I'll not say the name of the place because this isn't a good thing. But anyway, they had it in stock, number one. A lot of people didn't have it in stock. And they had the best price on it. So I got it from this particular company and pulled it out of the box. It looked, you know, fairly normal, except it had some Scotch tape around it. Thought nothing of it. Popped it open, and I pulled the line out and I put it up on the bike, you know, just to see where I wanted to lay it. I look at one of the banjo fittings, one of these circle parts right here, and one of them is like a D, so it's got a flat spot. And it looked like there had hammer strikes on the side or something. It was just all messed up. So then I look closer and I look at some of the little copper washers, and they got smudges on them. Somebody had wrenched on them. Somebody had used them. So obviously that combined with the Scotch tape told me that they sent me a returned used product that somebody screwed up and should have went right back in the trash, but no, they resold it. That was not cool. That's why I was supposed to be doing this video 2 weeks ago. So long story short, they didn't have another one in stock. That one was the only one they had, so they had to get this from the manufacturer and then pass it on to me. So I finally just got it. So now I can do it. And it's a good thing that, you know, I did decide to not try and fix it or anything, which I couldn't have done anyway. It turns out it was missing the 2 bolts. I didn't even know it came with these new bolts, which I'm guessing are needed for these particular banjo fittings. So anyway, got that new one. This is what I'm going to be putting on. Got this for $50 and change shipped. And the new OEM lines are more than that, so it's just ridiculous. And then I went this morning to Walmart and picked up their very last bottle of .4 brake fluid. I don't know why .4 is almost impossible to find. Even at AutoZone, they only had 2 bottles. One particular brand, 2 bottles left on the shelf. And the bike takes .4. Everything else seems to take .3. It seems to be the car standard. Anyway, now let's go ahead and get started. Sun's just about coming up here. We're in the nice cool part of the day. It's just above 70 degrees. It's going to get hot pretty soon. So I'm going to go ahead and I guess I'll put it up on the jack stand, pop off the front wheel. We'll get that rotor swapped, and then we will very carefully do the brake line. That is going to take a lot of towels because you do not want a single drop of that brake fluid hitting anything on your friggin' bike. That's no joke. Alright, taking the front wheel off, real easy. A little easier on this bobber project if you have the stock fender. Pretty much the same procedure, just you probably have to jack it up a little bit more to get underneath it. I don't need that much clearance, but you know, it got the jack, so it's easy. We've got 2 14 mil bolts here, and you just need to take these off to get your caliper off. I had a little, there's a reflector, and it's got a bracket that holds this speedometer sensor to this bolt, but on mine it's just kind of free floating. Gotta be careful there, and you want to put it back in the right location. I originally had routed it back under the rotor side of the bracket here. Very quickly found out that was incorrect. So we'll take these guys out and just dangle our rotor or caliper, it's early, forgive me, to the side here. And be careful if you have white walls like this. I'm actually going to grab a towel here. You don't want to get any grease on them. They're a special white wall cleaner, and I still have yet to wash the bike because we're not out of storm season yet. So every time I take the thing out, it gets dirt flung up everywhere. And if there's any kind of water on the road, I mean, you can see it. This is just from, everything you see is just from the tires. So there's no point in detailing it quite yet. But as soon as we get out of our summer rain pattern, it's detail time, you know, polish and wax and all that good stuff. And I'm going to use the actual white wall cleaner to get everything spick and span. So I'm just holding off for now. But I'm going to grab a towel real quick just to drape over this. And I'm going to need a lot anyway so we can do our brake line change. Go. Just carefully, it helps to spread the calipers a little bit, and the way you do that still on the bike is you just kind of rock it back and forth. It doesn't move much or fast, but you'll feel them push in more one way than the other. Tilting in like this, it's leveraging that piston back in, and now I got plenty of slop and it slides right off. That also makes it a hell of a lot easier when you're trying to put them back on. Make sure that if for any reason you bump the lever or something like that and they compressed back, make sure you stick an old brake pad in there or a piece of wood, or if you have a C-clamp with a big pad on it, compress that piston back in. Otherwise, you're never going to easily get this back in. Some bikes especially have a very, very tight fit, and you have to get just the right angle to get it back in here, or it hits your wheel. I'm just going to let this lay on there for now. I just didn't want it touching, that's all. Now we're going to flip over to the other side here. It's probably going to flop over, which is just fine. Now on this side, we've got a pinch bolt, and that is an 8 mil. And then we have the axle bolt, which is a 12 mil. So we just loosen this. We don't have to run it all the way out. And then this actually unscrews the axle. Make sure you can see that. Yeah, you can. And that will pull everything out. Now, as you pull the axle out, it helps to, you obviously can't pull it with this tool, but what you can do is keep unscrewing it. And as you unscrew it, just kind of apply a diagonal force, and it should come out very easily, especially if you've serviced this correctly like I've showed you, and you've greased it. The grease is not there to do anything with the bearings or anything like that. It helps disassembly next time, and it prevents surface corrosion. That's all the greasing an axle does. You know, there's nothing riding on the axle itself. The bearings do all the work of supporting the bike and doing the rotational force. But if you've greased your axle, this should come out nice and slick. You'll just have to support the wheel, especially a big old honking heavy wheel like this one. Man, I'll tell you, these are not light wheels. Even the tires are heavy. So lift it up with your foot. I just do that. I put my foot underneath it and just kind of lift it up as I take the axle out to make sure you don't have any load on it. And it'll slide right out like butter. When you do that, tires, or the whole wheel is going to drop down. It's not attached to anything. All you have to do is be careful of your speedometer sensor in here, because that will want to flop out as well, which is fine. Just don't pinch it or anything like that. So I'm going to go ahead and do the, wherever I put my old torque wrench, non-functional. God, I still get internet know-it-alls every time they see me do this. This is my cheater bar, my breaker bar. I don't use this as a torque wrench. Okay, that's it. So save the smart-ass know-it-nothing comments. There's that loose. I'm just going to get this loose with this, and I'm going to use the ratchet because it's shorter and easier to manipulate to actually take the axle out. There we go. So that's spinning freely now. Might not even need the ratchet. It was nice and free. Yeah, won't even need it. So now I'm going to support the wheel here. There we go. And I'm going to just unscrew this and let it do its thing. There it comes. You want to make sure that you keep track of where spacers are. Got a metal spacer here. I've got a little cap on the underside of it for the bearing. Make sure you don't have any washers that fall out. You know, it's not rocket science. It's just a few different parts. Now see here, I'm doing this with one hand. As long as you got pressure up on your wheel and it's not squishing down on the axle, 2 fingers, and I'm sliding the thing out. I'm twisting it and also gently pulling. I'm just putting a little torque on it to the side so it doesn't want to fall out. See, that's all it takes. That's what greasing your axle does for you. So you're not hammering on the dang thing. The next time you have to take it out, put it on a new tire or do whatever. See? Just that little film of grease. I take a lot of grief for that for internet know it nothings too. There we go. Okay, I'm gonna put this on a towel so it doesn't get all schmooky. Now we're gonna make sure you don't get grease on your white walls. Picking it up by the spokes here, I'm gonna gently lower it down, watching for that speedo so it doesn't get pinched. I'm not left-handed. Get out of there. There we go. Bada bing, bada boom. That's all there is to it. If I wasn't doing the video, this is a 60-second job. Let's change this rotor out. Oh, see? That's what I didn't want to do. Grease on the old white wall. Oh well. I'll have to clean it up. Now these guys a little here. Now these little guys here. We got 6 bolts we need to pull out. These are 6 mil. And you want to do these in a star pattern. Same as doing a car lug nuts or anything like that. Just make sure that it's in there real snug. Trying to stop this from spinning easily. It's not hard. I mean, it's not easy. I'm in a awkward position here because of the camera. You know what? I'm gonna flip it up. Be easier for me here. I don't want to be smudging the white wall around on the ground as all. This should work better for me. Now hopefully these don't try to strip or anything funny like that. If they start, I'm going to get out my torch. And that's starting. Alright, that's not good. Got a good bite, but it's just in there. It's probably corroded to hell. But yeah, I'm starting to strip out that head. So, the only issue is I don't want enough heat that it goes and starts to warp the center of the wheel or the bearing or any of that. So, it's going to be probably a quick process. And I don't really want to mess with penetrating fluid and risk getting that into the bearing right now, because I would have to let it sit. Well, maybe I'll do that. Yeah, I'll set it on its edge here. We'll try penetrating fluid first. Oh man, I think I gotta go back to the store because I think I'm out. All I have is WD-40, and that's not penetrating fluid. I need something like PB Blaster. Well, sun's up. You know what? AutoZone might be open. They're a lot closer than Walmart. So that's what I'm going to do first. I'll cover this, tape it up, get some penetrating fluid on all of these. Let that set a good hour. And if that doesn't work, then I'll hit these very quickly with my torch and then try to spin them off. That should do it. I mean, I'm sure it's just surface corrosion on the threads. You know, this bike was left out in the rain and all that kind of good crap. So it doesn't shock me that these are kind of stuck. So it shouldn't be that big of a deal. Surface corrosion usually isn't too hard to fight. But what you don't want to do is start stripping that. So be careful if you do this kind of stuff. Any kind of bolts like that where you think, ooh, that doesn't feel right, stop, because it ain't right. These shouldn't be that tough. All right, be back. Success. PB Blaster. Go ahead and this soak on here. I need something small to cover that bearing up. Stand by. Spackle to the rescue. We're just going to hit these and get some fluid around them. Oh, hey now. We're going to let this sit for a good hour. And then what I'll do is give them a quick rasp with a hammer. Hopefully they pop right out after this. And like I said, if that doesn't work, hit them with the torch, and that'll definitely do. Actually, I'll be hitting the rotor, not the bolts, with the torch. Heat that up and expand it a little bit, and that will definitely get them right out, but I think this will do the trick. I'll be back later. Okay, time to see if our penetrating fluid solution worked. Clean this off a bit here. Just don't want it splashing around. I'm going to give each one a couple wraps and then see how it goes. Now for the test. That still does not want to move. Does not want to budge. I suppose I could try one more time from the back. I guess I want to try penetrating fluid first, trying to avoid the heat. But I can hit these bolts from the back here. That might actually get in a lot better than from the front, because it would have to seep underneath the bolt heads. So we'll try one more time. I'm going to hit all these, and then we'll see how that goes. Well, it almost worked. I got 4 out of the 6 out. These 2 here, they still want to try to strip the heads. So before I got too far doing that, I'm going to go ahead and hit these with heat. I think that'll do it no problem, because there's just a whole lot of blue Loctite somebody slathered all over these. It might be stock, might be from the factory, but that's like way more than you need on a bolt. Just one little drop's all you need. So heat usually breaks the Loctite, no problemo. So I'm going to go ahead and try that. Okay, plan of attack is to get some heat right on the bosses in the back here. So I'm going to come at it like that. Shouldn't take a whole lot. I'm just using propane. I don't need MAP gas for this kind of stuff. Hopefully I have some gas left. Hey, I do. See how that does us. Really? Nothing? It's gonna be a bugger. Alright, I'm gonna work on this some more. Okay, plan B. At this point, the weakness is the bolt heads themselves. They are just spinning like butter. I can't get a solid bite. Even with the heat, they're not even beginning to budge, and they're just completely twisting like a pretzel. So I may end up having to drill them out, but I'm gonna go to Home Depot and get a thread bite kit, a screw head bite kit, and try to get a better grip on them. I'm sure I can spin them out if I can grip them, but I can't. I mean, it's not even close to holding it. They're twisting in there, the actual bolt themselves, at like 15 foot-pounds. I mean, it's nothing. It's just blah. So in the meantime, I'll have to order some new bolts. I mean, the rest of them aren't that great. They're just starting to buckle, but they came out at least. So I'll order 6 new bolts. Obviously the bike will be down till then, but hey, that's why I got another bike, right? And in the meantime, I'll just get these out. So I'm trying out these Speedouts. They look to be the right tool for the job. Works with any drill bit. No, works with any drill. Well, that's good. Removes any screw or bolt, including hex. Quick and easy to use. Removes any stripped screw in 10 seconds or less. So that is about what I need. And it says basically you drill it out, flip the bit, and extract. So I'm going to cut this open as soon as I find my razor, and we'll see what the instructions have to say. So here are the bolts, come in this handy little case, actually pretty nice quality. And that comment about 1 through 3 being able to fit in the quick change, that just is talking about the diameter. The number 4, it's a big old bit, so more for a large electric drill that you have to really tighten down with a tool with a bigger chuck. But these 3 are standard size. So I'm going to use number 3, the biggest of the bunch there. Not really a huge difference between them. Looks like 1 is half the size of 3 and 2 is right in between. But none of them are terribly large. For anything really industrial, you're going to be using number 4 and hoping that's big enough. They had some bigger specialty bits like this at Home Depot, but they were really big. So these should be just fine. Step 1, protect the bearings. Wipe this down a little bit here. Make sure absolutely no metal bits have any chance of getting anywhere near your bearings. Because that means you would need new bearings. Lickety split. There we go. Nice and safe. No chance of metal dust getting in there. Okay, step 1 is to drill it out. Nice and secured. Make sure it's not going to spin on you at all. So I'm going to go in reverse direction. Boy, I tell you, it's not that big. I may have to actually use number 4. Let me flip this around. I want to see if, because the biggest part of this bit goes completely in the hole. Yeah, that ain't going to work. Alright, stand by. New drill. Hey, look at that. Number 4 barely fit in my drill. So let's see how that works. Much better. There we go. Now the tip goes in, and now I got something to actually drill into. Double check that tape one more time. That's all I would need, is to do another bearing removal and install, although the wheel was really easy. Alright, let's give it a shot here. I'm going to drill it out pretty much as far down as I can go. I mean, I don't need this at all anymore. I just want to make sure that I can get a really good bite on it. Now it says to drill this one fast and just completely smooth. You don't want any tool marks, it says. And you extract it very slowly. So this is just full-on drill in reverse. Okay, don't press down quite so much. It really bites. Let's get it up to speed and then press. It really likes to bite. I mean, really. That seems to be just spinning there, so it's bottoming out. Just wipe these middle bits off a little bit. Now we flip the bit. Tighten it back down. And again, in reverse, very slowly, dig this guy out. Hopefully, it'll come right out while putting pressure down. And that is not even starting to bite. Okay, that's mildly interesting. Let's go in the right direction. Well, I guess it's not quite deep enough. So, looks like what I'll have to do is drill down into it and then use this drill tool more. It's just not deep enough into it. It's about half the depth of this, so I just need more space. So let me go ahead and grab a regular drill bit and we'll just get down in there some more. Pause again. Out of battery in the drill. I drilled it out, used a 3/8 inch, drilled down what felt like just before the head gave out. I don't want this head to snap off, then I'd be trying to extract. Well, you know, actually that might work better if I just drilled this head completely off, kind of like I did when I did the brake job video on my Kia, and then just extract the core of it. But anyway, it's a 3/8 inch, and I went just down, so it's still attached, and then I drilled some with the cone, got down much deeper than I did before, put the extractor in, and it bit this time. It just didn't do anything because it was out of juice. So it went, I'm like, oh, come on. So we're getting there on the charger, but I'll pick this up tomorrow because I'm only down to one battery on the drill, and it's not a fast charger. I should get a new drill. This one's like 15 years old. To be continued. Holy crap, what a pain in the ass project this has turned into. I'm almost regretting doing it, but it'll be better to have it done. Alright, first, I do need to get a new drill, because this one damn near caught on fire during this. It was puffing out smoke when I was leaning on one of the drill bits there, so yeah, that's great. It stopped smoking, and it still kind of works right now, but it really stinks, so something burned up inside. Anyway, like I said, decade old, it's time. Man, it's not even, oh man, that thing's hot. It's an old 18 volt Black & Decker, the big old huge, it's not a NiCad battery, but it might be. Anyway, it's the kind that takes hours to charge, and you know, it sucks. And like I said, down to my last battery, and buying a new battery is half the price of a whole new freaking kit. Anyway, these Speedouts suck. They might be great for bolts that aren't stuck and just have a stripped head, you know, something in wood, something that's fairly easy that's going to come out anyway. But holy moly, they do absolutely nothing if the bolt is stuck. It does not grab. All right, I drilled it through. It was fully engaged. You know, it was burred out, drilled out as far as it could go, all the way up to the shaft here, the shank, nice and smooth. This just wouldn't grab. It couldn't have any more torque than I was getting out of the heads alone before it would just start to spin. And once it starts to spin, it's not doing any good except, you know, stripping out what's there to begin with. So bear that in mind. If you have really stuck bolts or screws, don't waste the $20 on these Speedouts. I'll keep them because, you know, I'm sure there's something in the future I'll be able to use them for, but not this project. So what I had to do is use a increasing diameter of drill bits, and I drilled the heads off just like I did the one on the Kia brake job. This finally cooled down. This thing was like red hot. So there's what's remaining of the head of the bolt. I should be able to get this rotor off now. I have a lot of metal bits to clean up off the floor here, but I should at least be able to get this off. There we go. Whew. Popped loose. So I got some good thickness to this. Hopefully I've got, nope, I was going to say hopefully I've got enough shaft on the bolts. Nope, not even freaking close. One is flush and nothing sticking out of there. And this one, nah, it's not enough to get pliers on or anything. So now I got to get the remnants out. So oh man, there's still a freaking shoulder in there. Oh, pain in the ass. And I'm not buying a whole new freaking wheel just for these two things. I'll take it to a shop if I really can't get it. But you know, whether it means just drilling the rest of these out and tapping again, that's perfectly acceptable. I don't think I can even use the Speedouts on these. I mean, I could try that first. Maybe it was, you know, the bite with the rotor that was keeping them snug, more so than these threads contacting. But I don't know. I think it's these threads. You can see all that crap in there. That's your Loctite. I mean, it was just gunked in there. So I'm sure these other two are just held in with the same. But I can't know because I don't have any way of gripping these guys right now. But I suppose I can try drilling through. I got to drill through to do whatever with them anyway. So I guess that's the next step to do. I'll make sure this is taped down, man. There is metal everywhere. That is no joke. Alright, so I'm going to use up what life is left in that drill. I don't care if I total it now, it's being replaced. And see if I can get some more out of these guys here. They're nice and concave, so it'll be easy to center the drill bits. Now this 3/8 perfectly fits down the holes without damaging threads. Is that warped? No, just contacting weird. So anyway, I don't like the way that goes through. Just doesn't quite go through straight. It's at an angle. Anyway, I'll figure it out. Got a lot more work to do here, and I'll get it eventually. One of those days. Okay, Monday morning, I am off to a shop to get these last two bolts taken care of. Coincidentally, there is a brand new shop opening up this morning. Actually, looking at my clock here, they probably opened the doors 5 minutes ago, and they're right down the street. So I'm going to go give them a shot. At this point, I'm just looking for a one-stop shop that can take care of this. Not every kind of motorcycle shop, certainly not every kind of dealer, is going to be able to get out bolts like this. It's going to take more of the kind of shop with shop tools, more of the machine shop kind of stuff. It may have to be drilled out and tapped, which any competent shop should be able to do. And this particular one is advertising themselves as a fabrication shop, building custom bikes. So this is certainly going to be a very common thing that they would run into in that line of business. So I'm going to hope that they're set up to do this kind of stuff. But you know what? Like I said, it's the first day. Just rolling the dice. If they, for some reason, say no and don't have any idea of who would in the area, I'll ask the one that I've been going to get my tires balanced again down the street the other way. I don't think they can do it. They have a very limited shop. They look like they just do the basic sales and maintenance, you know, batteries, tires, and wheels, and that's about it. I don't think they do any kind of real custom work, but they have been around a while, so they would at least know who can. So the goal is to at least get the thing dropped off today and get the ball rolling to get fixed. The new bolts aren't going to be here for a few days. I'm not going anywhere on it, so there's no big rush. And as soon as I get it figured out and dropped off somewhere, I'm heading over to Home Depot and seeing what kind of deals they've got on drills. Because like I said, that one just about went up in flames. There was at least one wire in there that burned off all its insulation. Let me tell you what, big plumes of smoke coming out of that guy. It still ran, but you know, there's something in there about to short out. So let's get going. Well, that actually went really well. Spoke with the owner for a good 15 minutes. I am their first and only customer right now. That's all right. It's like 20 after 9, so I got up here just after they opened the doors. And I'm very confident, and he's confident that It's not a big problem whatsoever. He's got tons of different equipment and options to get him out. He said shouldn't be any big deal whatsoever. And since I'm the only customer, he's going to get right on it. So I told him a little bit about two and offered to do a tour video for him. I think it'd be cool for him to use. He could, put the video up. I'll do a couple different versions if I do it. One, just for him, so he could put it up on the website, and then I'll include it in, one of my videos and show you guys the shop and everything. But I said, let me know when you're ready, because he's still getting everything set up. It's going to be a while before they really get stuff running, get everything set up in the shop right, and all that kind of stuff. But I asked him, hey, what's special about your shop here? And he says, well, you know what? Not a lot of people do metric and Harley well. And I said, that's very true. Pretty much every shop around here is one or the other, and that's it. So we'll see what happens. Oh, you're freaking kidding me. It's hot. And I'm back. Success. Just came back from the shop and they were able to zip those out, no problem. They didn't even want to charge me. I'm like, no, dude, you're in business, you got to charge people. He's like, oh, just, it wasn't that big of a deal. I'm like, dude, come on. He's brand new. I was literally his first sale. So I said, look, what do you want? He brings out his mechanic and he says, give him a tip. He's like, I said, what do you want? He says, give me $5. I said, here, put 20 on my card. So, we're all happy. But yeah, they got them out. No problem. So now I'm just going to wait on the bolts to get here. When I pulled up, there was a two-wheel Obsession fan sitting in the driveway. Just pulled up, out of the blue. So we chatted for a while, and I adjusted his shift linkage for him. He was brand new to the bike. He just bought a used 06. Looked in real good shape, had a lot of farkles on it. So I, just went over the bike for him, and we just shot the shit for a little bit. Anyway, I will pick this up in a couple days when the new bolts get here, and then I will remount the rotor, the new used rotor, get that put back together, and then once it's back assembled, I'll be able to then drain the brake fluid, and we'll do the stainless steel brake upgrade kit. I don't want to do that until everything is in place, because I need those banjo fittings pointing in the right direction, and I want things shifting around with that brake fluid. Woohoo! It's about 3 in the morning on Sunday. Screws came in yesterday, but I was busy with other projects. Didn't have a chance to wrap this up. And I was right that some moron applied a ton of Loctite to these. However, the moron was the factory. These are OEM bolts, and they are pre-applied. So there's nothing I can do about that. I seriously would have put at least half that on there. But anyway, at least I will not have to be taking this guy off again. I need to clean up my rotor. This is the used one I got. Let's just wait until stuff came in. I'm just going to hit it with some brake cleaner. There's no rough spots. Everything you see is just surface. I mean, there's nothing to take off, so I'm not going to hit it with sandpaper or anything like that. I'm just going to actually clean it with brake cleaner, get off that marker there, and that'll be that. Just get it a little shined up. We'll go ahead and bolt it back onto the wheel. I need to do a little bit of cleanup on that. I still have the polishing compound. I still haven't washed the bike. It's just been, bad weather. But I'll clean this up before I put it on. The guys taped up the 2 old bolts there that they drew out, and we'll get it reassembled. Got the replacement rotor installed. No issues there as expected. Nice and clean. Now I'm going to go ahead and put it back on the bike, and that's simply raising it up again with your feet or with a buddy, putting the axle back in, torquing the axle back down, but don't torque down the pinch bolt after you get it actually installed on the axle. This is a weird setup. Alright, let me just explain. Most bikes use an axle and a nut, like my FJR over here. You've got the axle that comes in from that side of the bike, and it screws into this nut that you can't see. It's right there. All right, so everything's enclosed, and it locks itself down. The forks, they're in a set position. So your wheel is centered, your fender is centered, your brake is centered. Everything's centered because it can only be in one position. Well, this bike here, it doesn't do that. What you've got is the axle that slides in from this side, and there are threads in this fork. Okay, that's what the axle is screwing into. There's no nut. This is actually free floating. There's a straight through hole. There's nothing in this fork at all to position itself or locate it. The axle has a shoulder. Okay, and the shoulder bumps up against this spacer, like that. And this spacer bumps up against the end of the wheel, actually on the other side, but you get the idea. This is the only thing pinching it to locate it. The fork is over the end of this shoulder, but where it is floats. Okay, that means, I mean, really, your wheel may not be perfectly centered because everything's going to be located to the right side fork only. This left side is going to be wherever it wants to be. So what they want you to do is, after you get the wheel installed and the axle tightened down, you drop the bike off the stand and you bounce it a few times on the ground. You compress the forks to get this to settle where it wants to settle. Then you tighten down the pinch bolt. And all this pinch bolt is doing is squishing this fork on whatever it's left on the end of that shoulder. So theoretically, if this is off because your fender is mounted to your forks, your wheel might not be perfectly centered in your fender. So it's just kind of a, I don't know, not my favorite kind of setup. I much rather prefer a axle and bolt setup so that it pinches the forks, everything's in one position, everything is centered, you can't screw it up. But that's the way this is. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that now. And there we go. Everything buttoned back up. I'm gonna wait until the sun comes up to do the brake line change. But I got it down on the ground now. Brakes in. When you put this speedo sensor on, let me turn on the light for you. It's got a little tab. I'm sure I mentioned it in the bobber build, but if you're just watching this video, there's a tab on the fork side. This whole assembly goes on the front side of it. That's just to locate it. And it just sits there. It gets pinched. And when you put the sensor back in, because it has an integrated seal, if it doesn't have grease on the seal, just put a little dab of moly grease on there just to seal it against the bearing. And then you just put your brake caliper back on, torque down your 2 bolts. Don't forget to pump your front brake up before you go riding. And then I bounced it a couple times holding the front brake, and then that located the fork on the axle itself. You can see it's sunk in there quite a ways. That's where it wants to naturally go. And then you torque down your pinch bolt. And that's that. So tomorrow, or when I can get to it, we're going to be replacing this brake line. It's just undoing this bolt here, taking this bolt out. We're going to be replacing the bolt also and these washers. And all the brake fluid's going to come out. I'm going to suck it out as much as I can using my Mighty Vac through the bleeder valve here. And everything is going to be covered. I mean, I'm going to have towels on everything. And then the other end goes right up here to the reservoir. So we're just going to route the new line. It's a little shorter than this one here. This is all snaked through here. New one's going to be a cleaner install. And that'll wrap up the modifications for the bobber. Okay, it's Labor Day. Happy Labor Day, everybody. Let's wrap this project up. Wife's gone, so I got some room back in the garage. What I got to do is swap out my brake line. Now, do what you got to do. Your setup's going to be a little different. Obviously, I've got the bobber going on here. All I have to do is snip a couple zip ties, and I think that's all I have going on. So that'll free up my brake cable to actually come out. Okay, brake fluid. Think of it like the blood of the alien, all right? If you think of it that way, you'll be okay. You do not want a drop of this crap hitting anything on your bike. So I got 2 layers of towels. I'm going to be popping the top in the reservoir because I need to completely drain it so I can take the line off, and then I'm going to be refilling it. On my bike, I have to loosen my mirror mount a little bit just to get it out of the way. You probably don't have to do that. Be really careful on these little Phillips screws. Give them a tap if you've never had it off, or if it's been a while, or if you park it outside, because they can kind of be seized in there. They're countersunk and they're tapered head, so they can get kind of jammed up with corrosion, but they shouldn't be that big of a deal. These certainly won't be because I just had this off. All we're doing is removing the 2 banjo fittings, and it's one through bolt here and one down at the bottom. We're replacing them with these new ones that came in the kit, and we're going to use 4 of these new washers. And that's pretty much it. Now, one end of this on the new cable is bent more than the other. You can see the fitting there and then the fitting here. The bent one goes down at the wheel. They had a little tag on the end of the line here. Plenty of room here. I'm just gonna, you only got one hand. Yeah, plenty of room to snake that up. So it's about the same length as the stock line, if not exactly the same. What I'm going to do first is basically like a flush, except I'm not going to be refilling. I'm going to hook up the Mighty Vac and put it on the bleeder valve here. Crack that open, pump up a little vacuum. I'll probably have to empty this reservoir twice and put it in a container just like your oil and dispose of it properly. And I do have a new bottle of brake fluid. Got to grab that. Remember, don't use a bottle that's been previously opened. It is hydroscopic. It absorbs the moisture in the air. Just cracking the top, man, it'll suck up whatever moisture's in that bottle. So always use a brand new unopened bottle of brake fluid whenever you do maintenance. And that should be it. No other adjustments or anything like that. And then we just refill it and bleed it, just like we did before when I did the project and I flushed the brake fluid out. Let's go ahead and do it. I got my top cover off, very carefully set everything aside, making sure not to drip. So now we're gonna just pump up a little bit of vacuum. Doesn't take much. And we're gonna open this up again. We're just gonna fairly slowly suck it all out. Hey now. See, if I had anything underneath that, that would have been real trouble for the paint. Okay, got it drained, it's sucking air up top. Tough to do this with one hand. What you don't want is this brake fluid going all over the place on you. These tubes are fairly stiff. They fit on this cap real well here, but you need a slightly smaller one, as you can see, to fit up at the bleed screw. Came with a bunch of adapters and different lines. I'll have to monkey around with that at some later point. So now I'm going to tighten this back down for now. Just snug it a little bit so it stops dripping. Go take care of this, be right back. I'm going to go ahead and take off my brake line. I'm going to do the bottom first since it's going to drain out a little bit. And when I do the top one, I need to make sure that as soon as I take it off, anything that drips on those towels gets removed, because I don't want it to soak through the towel and hit the paint. That would be an absolute disaster. So down here, it's okay. I just got my little rag. Doesn't matter what comes out. It's not going to hit anything. This should be on here fairly snug. Oh my goodness, it is. Let me grab a socket. Need a longer wrench for leverage. There we go. Whew, speaking of dripping, it's hot out again. It has been raining all morning. It's already in the 90s. It's muggy. Dripping sweat. So here we go. Bolts out. Dripping a little bit through. Catch anything coming out of the caliper there. And bada bing, bada boom. Now we need to Snip these two zip ties, and I'll do the same up top, and we'll get rid of this stock brake line, finally. So here's our old line out. Now there were a couple grommets, half grommets, split grommets, whatever you want to call them, that go around it. And therefore, a couple key points on this particular bike. There's a bracket right up here. So I'm going to slip this around the new one, assuming it fits, because this also has a big rubber sheath over the actual brake line. So it may not fit exactly, but as long as it stays on, it'll do its job. Let's see. Yeah, that'll work. So that'll just prevent it from rubbing around on stuff. It's not going to keep it secure, but it doesn't need to be. Actually, I'll route it through and see exactly where I want to route it. I may not even go in the same spot as the old one because it was kind of kinked. This one could just be a straighter shot since I don't have to have it in those positions. So I'm going to go ahead and put on the upper one first, route it down through the bike, connect the bottom, and then we'll just refill and bleed it and be done. Okay, got the new line on. What I did is I put the top one on first, and then I put the bottom on. This is a real non-flexible line. It's stainless steel, and then it's coated and it's lined, so it doesn't have any twist in it. It's not like the stock one here where you can manipulate each side to go in any position you want. This is pretty much locked in. So the bottom one can only go in one position. It's got a little notch and it goes straight up. So all I did is after I got that locked down, loosened up the top, and it went exactly where it wanted to go, which is pretty much straight up, just a little bit back, and that's that. Now all I have to do is tidy up these cables, put some more zip ties on. I'll put the grommet up here, and I'm going to go ahead and flush and bleed the system now, just like I did during the bobber build. And that is it. So bada bing, bada boom. So you can see, super easy to replace your lines. It's just a couple bolts and cleaning up your mess. That's it, guys. I'm not going to go through this again because, like I said, I already did it. So you've seen it done before, just like normal brake bleeding, which there's already a video on. So that's it. Thanks for watching. I'm glad to finally get this guy back on the road after about 3 weeks now total. A lot of waiting. Give me a thumbs up, and we'll see you next time.